Human history has been affected by infectious diseases. The fight against invisible and enigmatic infectious diseases never ends. How should we deal with it? Let's look back on the history of human and infectious diseases. There are bacteria and viruses, which are two main causes of infectious diseases among people. While bacteria have their own cells and produce energy, the virus penetrates into plants and animals' tissues and uses their host cells to multiply the copies of the virus. Since humans began domesticating animals more than 10,000 years ago, both have existed as a zoonosis disease between animals and people. What makes the infection spread is movement of people and goods. Due to the Crusade expeditions, leprosy has spread. Mycobacterium leprae, the cause of leprosy, has been found among monkeys and armadillos. When humans get infected, symptoms such as scaly skin can be seen. Although the infectivity is not high, at that time it was misdiagnosed as a genetic disease, or the patients were forced into quarantine at remote sanatoriums. As infectious diseases spread, so did discrimination and prejudice. In the 14th century, the plague expanded due to the movement and trade of the Mongolian army. Plague bacteria was transmitted to humans through fleas living on rats and cats. The number of infected people increased due to the droplet infection. As the symptoms progress, bruise spreads throughout the body. The mortality rate exceeds 90%, so it was also called the Black Death. In Europe, the plague killed 20 to 30 million people, 1/3 of the population at that time. And when social unrest increased, tragedy occurred even more. False rumors began to spread that the cause of the plague was the poison that Jews threw in the well. Mainly in southern Germany, persecution and massacre of Jews occurred. Many Jews lost their lives because of these violent attacks. The spread of infectious diseases deprives humans of the reasoning skills. Meanwhile, in Venice, where trade was active, a crackdown on the movement of people and goods began. To see whether or not they had been infected, a 40-day quarantine period was set up for ships arriving in ports. The English word quarantine originates from quarantena, which is the Venetian language form, meaning 40 days. When the movement of people and goods spreads across continents, syphilis was sent from the American continent to Europe. Treponema syphilis is transmitted from person to person by sexual activity. The characteristic is that red rash appears on the whole body as the symptoms progress. With the sexual liberation of the Renaissance period, syphilis spread rapidly. In the 20th century, with the invention of the antibiotic penicillin, the number of infected people decreased. But in recent years, the number of infected people has increased again. Syphilis is still around today, taking advantage of human desire. Meanwhile, smallpox was sent to the American continent. The smallpox virus has high infectability and mortality rates, and it became the cause of the fall of the Aztec kingdom and the Inca Empire. When it develops, pustules appear all over the body. and the traces of infection have been found on the skin of Ramesses V in Egypt in ancient times. Smallpox spread through the Eurasian continent via the Silk Road, and a pandemic occurred in Japan in the 8th century. It is said that 1 to 1.5 million people, 1/3 of the total population, have died. And Todaiji, a great temple in Nara, is believed to have been erected in order to bring peace to a tumultuous society. However, smallpox is a virus that humans have succeeded in eradicating for the first time. The vaccination, developed by Edward Jenner of the United Kingdom, is a preventive method, utilizing the discovery that cowpox patients could not be infected with smallpox. With the worldwide spread of vaccination, smallpox was eradicated in 1980. Countermeasures against infectious diseases require international cooperation. During the 19th century, tuberculosis that was epidemic. It spread when people inflowed into the city due to the Industrial Revolution and a dense population. When it develops, a bad cough lasts long, and the bloody phlegm, which is blood-streaked mucus, means death. It spread especially among young adults, and writers and celebrities also lost their lives. Tuberculosis bacillus was discovered by Robert Koch, the founder of modern bacteriology, and countermeasures were advanced. It is still a common infection even now. There are many potential carriers, and not a few people are at risk of developing when their immune system is compromised. Entering the 20th century, the fast means of transport became available, and the risk of a pandemic that spreads worldwide has increased. That is influenza. The influenza, which has caused the pandemic in 1918, is called Spanish flu, which originated from America. It is said that the movement of the U.S. forces to Europe during World War I spread the infection. Spain was unfairly stigmatized instead, and it became known as the Spanish flu. The number of deaths exceeds the one of deaths in World War I. Out of the world population of 1.6 billion at the time, about 500 million were infected, and 50 to 100 million of them lost their lives. Influenza virus was originally an infectious disease among birds. Sometimes it can infect pigs and even humans. When the virus mutates to be transmitted from person to person, an outbreak begins. The virus has genes in RNA. By changing two spikes of HA and NA, it evolves little by little. In particular, as the new type of influenza is changing its shape drastically, there is a risk that the virus bypasses the human immune system and patients get seriously ill. Therefore, we need to cooperate internationally and constantly monitor influenza viruses. In recent years, SARS, MERS, and COVID-19 were prevalent. Coronavirus is a threat. But what we need to do is always the same in any era. From the lessons we've learned in the past, it is said that the following three things are important. First, early detection. We identify the pathogen and the source of infection. Second, early dissemination of information. We identify problems and encourage people to take proper actions. And third, early countermeasures. We must do our best to prevent the spread of infection worldwide. The fight against infectious diseases is always a fight against time. Our fight against infectious diseases will be repeated. So we should learn from history and take proper measures for that. Thank you for watching.